Video, I want to talk about some of the factors that can be used to control whether or not an RNA is translated after it's been transcribed. So after the RNA has been transcribed, how can a cell control whether or not that's actually translated? Okay, so in your nucleus, we're going to start. There are a lot of different ways, by the way, that this can happen. We're going to be going over a few, and the first one I'm going to be talking about is controlling RNA in passageways. So which RNA are actually allowed to leave the nucleus can determine whether or not they can be translated. Okay, so basically this is your nucleus here that I'm drawing, nucleus. And outside in your cytoplasm are ribosomes. Okay, now these RNA need to leave your nucleus in order to actually access these ribosomes and be translated, because all of your ribosomes are outside of the nucleus. So in order for your RNA to actually be translated, obviously it needs to leave the nucleus. And these passageways determine which RNA are actually allowed to leave. So what type of filter do these passageways have? Well, these passageways actually just work to determine whether or not mature RNAs leave. So if you have a mature RNA, so an RNA, and let's say this RNA is mature, then it will be allowed to leave. But if you have an RNA that's not mature, then it won't be allowed to leave. Okay? So again, these passageways basically allow mature RNA to leave, and they don't allow non-mature RNA to leave. Now, your cell might not want these mature RNAs to be translated anyways. They might have different uses that they need, or they don't need that particular RNA at the moment, even though it's out in the cytoplasm and it could definitely interact with these ribosomes. So how would it control whether or not this RNA would be translated? Well, outside of the nucleus, there are actually a lot of different ways the cell can control whether or not RNA is translated. So the first way would be that I'm going to talk about is repressors. So these repressors are going to inhibit RNA from being translated, and I'm going to show you how. So basically, an RNA has two ends, a 5' I won't go into detail, but a 5' and a 3', and it's always translated from the 5' first, and sometimes a repressor, so I'm going to write R for repressor, will be added, and it will inhibit it from being translated. So the ribosome will look at it, it will say, oh, I can't actually translate this, it has a repressor on it, and it will leave it alone. And this RNA will not be translated. So that's the first of the ways that you can that an RNA can be controlled in its translation. The second way I want to talk about is destabilization. So when you have an RNA, I haven't gone into this before, but RNAs all have caps. Okay, these caps. Okay, and these caps basically ensure that your RNA is not going to be degraded. So RNA is stable with this cap on, but without this cap, it's going to be very unstable, and it's going to be a very high likelihood that it will begin to degrade. And it will no longer be able to be translated after it's been degraded. So this cap will be removed, and this RNA will no longer be able to be translated. So that's another way that it can be controlled. Another control factor in translation is localization. And localization basically just is localizing RNA, so moving an RNA around the cell to where it needs to be. And sometimes this can affect whether or not it's translated or not. Okay, so the last factor that I want to talk about is translational initiation factors. So sometimes in translation, certain means will need to be met. So, in order for something to be translated, in order for an RNA to be translated, certain proteins might need to be present, or certain proteins might not need to be present. Might need to not be present. So maybe we have protein X that needs to be present, and protein Y that should not be present. And if X is present and Y is not present, then translation will occur. But if any of these parameters does not meet the requirement, then this translation will not occur. So that pretty much wraps up this video on translational factors. I just wanted to give you a good idea of how the cell can control translation, and how it doesn't really need to rely entirely on transcription factors. It can also rely on its ability to control translation after RNA has been transcribed. Thank you.